What we do here is go back.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the new and improved Bondscast, the podcast where we take a deep dive into the sometimes comical and also dark troves of Canadian history. I'm your host, Bon, and if you stuck around for the last couple months, then genuinely thank you. And if you're new to the program, I'm absolutely psyched to have you here. I'm pleased to inform everyone that we've got some new equipment, new program plans, and some much-needed structure to the show. This is still going to be the main segment, full of colorful commentary, questionable humor, and hopefully some interesting stories. But stick around and check in because I've got what I think is some pretty exciting content coming down the pipe. Stay tuned to the end of the show for more on that, though. Anyhow, let's settle in and get this cracking. As in the past, I've got a co-host today who has no clue about the details of the story I have planned. One of my best buddies, Josh. Go ahead and say hey.
Hello, everyone.
How's it going?
It's great. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, you feel nervous or anything?
Oh, man, I was so nervous coming into this.
Man, I'm nervous.
I got to say, I like your setup now. I never saw the one before.
It wasn't good. Have you seen my bedroom?
Yes.
That's what it looked like.
All right. Well, I just want to explain things to some of the guests that are listening.
Ooh.
I'm just looking around right now.
Close your eyes.
Yeah. There's a 40-pound weight vest. There's a Mewtwo Strikes Back poster.
Talk more about the weights.
A wood-burning stove. Oh, the weights have dust on them. Looks like they haven't been used. No, it's very interesting. I love it.
Yeah, it does the job. Clean it up a bit more. I don't know. I want to get a set thing going here, so I think in the future this could be pretty good.
No, it's awesome.
So, how are you?
Doing good, man.
Yeah? How was that marathon you ran the other day?
It was good.
Was it?
It was a struggle. I kind of just jumped into it. Didn't really prepare all that much. I gave myself 3 weeks. Finished the marathon.
The most impressive part.
I was hurting.
43 kilometers.
Yeah.
That's fucking long.
Yeah, it was a battle, physically and emotionally.
If I get 2K at the gym, I'm like psyched. So, pretty impressive.
Yeah. No, like I said, I'm really glad I did it. I will never run a marathon again.
But you can say you've done one.
But I can say I've done it.
Which is sick. And like a substantial one. I think that's the coolest part. Like it's not just like I was talking to you about earlier, just some bullshit little 5K. Oh, I did a mud run. It's like a legit.
We did mud runs the previous years. And I couldn't go to the mud run this year, so step it up to a marathon.
Even better.
Yeah.
I would never in my life do that. But I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
So I was figuring we could talk about some current events quickly, just, ease into this.
Okay. I like current events.
I know. Better than, well, not better, but a far reach from what we're going to talk about after. Not at all current. Does tie in a bit, though, loosely.
Right.
Okay. So you might have heard through Canada, like couple 2-3 weeks ago, there was those 2 kids who murdered a few people.
Heard a little bit about it.
Yeah, dark story. Really tragic, like obviously what happened to all the people.
Yeah.
But it was 19-year-old Cam McLeod and 18-year-old Briar Schmegelski. Yeah, quite the last name.
Yeah.
They murdered a couple to start off with. A man from Australia by the name of Lucas Fowler and his girlfriend China Dees.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
It is. And
were they tied in any way? Like, did they know him? Or
no,
is it just...
that's what was so fucked about this, is these were just random, like it was random. They were just trying to murder people, is what it sounded like at the end. So I don't know, pretty terrible in general. They were also linked to a third victim, one Leonard Dyke.
Man,
they weren't even originally linked. Like the car was found burnt up, I believe, and like in some roundabout way they figured it out. Anyhow, it subsequently was a manhunt across Canada. Like they made it all the way to Manitoba from BC. So like,
geez, they went far.
Yeah. And it all kind of wrapped up. They found the bodies, like they're toast. They offed themselves, which I think for some people is like
It's better they did it themselves. Lots of people choose suicide by cop, and that's just
dangerous.
It's awful. It
And
really is.
surprised, like, I guarantee there's people out there who would have done shit to them too. So I mean, yeah, they evaded, jail time, all that shit, prison time, but I guess at least there's closure for the families. Like, in general, all pretty
Yeah,
messed up.
it's never easy.
But yeah, I don't know. What I was just trying to get there though was like the manhunt aspect of this, like
Right.
across Canada. Like it's not something easy to follow. It's like hard to track people even nowadays. So like you think about 100 years ago, like how much tougher is that?
It's gonna be way tougher 100 years ago.
Which is kind of what our story might
This
be.
is your segue. Hey? Okay.
A really grim segue, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no kidding.
I
Jeez.
should have thought about that a little more.
Oh.
Anyway, should we just jump on into it?
Well, I do have a couple questions for you.
Yeah, shoot.
I just want to know where you see this going, because you've had how many episodes now?
I think there's 5 out now. One's horrible, and
Yeah,
the original 4, like I enjoyed that it was us dipping our toes into it,
yeah.
but I did want something a little more set, a little more substance, a little better setup.
Right. Yeah, I was an avid Bonner from the start.
That makes me happy to hear.
I listened to all your episodes, man. Some were really good, and
Some were not.
some were not. But you've only done X amount of episodes.
I know.
And I think it's awesome you're doing this. You're putting yourself out there like that.
I think what's going to help me in the long run is going to be consistency, which is what I really want to get across with this. Have weekly segments and then sprinkle in some other fun things when I feel like it. No pressure.
Right, like manhunts and murders.
Yeah, really feel good things.
Okay.
Stuff that the whole family can enjoy.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. No, I think it's awesome. So good for you.
No,
man.
I appreciate you asking. Like, nobody does. But no, you ready to go?
Ready to go.
You feeling better?
I am feeling better.
Feeling
Yeah,
loosey?
like I said, I was nervous coming into this, man.
Loosey goosey.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll jump in here.
Okay.
Albert Johnson.
I know this guy.
Fuck off.
I'm just kidding.
I knew you were going to do that. So Albert Johnson. This is the man we're looking at.
Okay.
This guy first arrived in Fort McPherson, which is in the Northwest Territories, after coming down the Peel River on July 9th, 1931. So that's when our story's taking place, too.
All right.
General area, you can get a feel for it. Up north, obviously, cold even that time of year. So all things that kind of play factors into what this all kind of transpires to. As soon as he got there, he was actually questioned by RCMP Constable Edgar Millen. So Edgar Millen was just kind of wondering why this guy floated down the river and just showed up. But I guess Albert didn't provide him with anything. So just kind of like stonewalled him, fucked off, and then went about his business. Millen thought he had a Scandinavian accent, generally kept himself clean-shaven, and seemed to have plenty of money for supplies, which also unusual for someone just floating down the river.
In the Northwest Territories.
Yeah, like that. Why is this guy here?
Yeah.
So after venturing the waterways in a native-built raft to the Mackenzie River Delta, he built a small 8x10 cabin on the banks of the Rat River. I'm gonna get into it. I swear to God.
Okay.
It just takes me about 5 minutes.
Right. He built his own cabin.
So he built his own cabin on the banks of the Rat River.
Right.
Which is also somewhat, for his namesake, Rat River is important.
Okay.
Johnson, who's the man we're talking about, had not acquired a trapping license, which was considered very odd for someone living in the bush. So, like, you're living out in the bush, like, you're trapping to live.
Right.
Like, you're not going into town every day to buy supplies. You're living off the land.
Yeah, it's your livelihood. That's
Yeah.
how you eat. That's how you get your clothes.
So this was kind of the first red flag for the RCMP. Like, why does this guy not have a trapping license? Like, what? Like, already things are weird, but this
Yeah.
is even more so. At that time, many northern native traditional trapping areas were being invaded by outsiders fleeing the Great Depression, and some complaints may have been intended to remove him. So keep in mind, like, with what follows, it's a lot of hearsay, and, like, regardless of how this story paints him, it's like you kind of have to think of both sides.
Okay.
So, in December So now we're into the cold-ass months. He got here in July. It's December now.
Okay.
One of the native trappers complained to the local RCMP detachment in Aklavik that someone was tampering with his traps. Tripping them, like ripping them apart, hanging them up in trees, basically fucking with them.
Just didn't want him there.
Yeah. He immediately identified Johnson as the likely culprit. So a good way to think of it, like I was just talking about, like they were being invaded, by people fleeing the Great Depression. This guy comes here with all his money. What does it seem like he's doing?
Yeah, exactly. He's getting out of there.
Yeah. On December 26th, Constable Alfred King, so different police officer this time, and Special Constable Joe Bernard.
It's a great name.
Bernard. Joe Bernard. It rolls off the tongue.
It does.
Each of whom had considerable northern experience, which is important. Like, not anyone can roll up there and, like, do the shit they do, especially then. Like, we got to keep in mind this was, like, 80 years ago.
Man, those are tough times.
Yeah.
You
especially
gotta know how to live out there.
Great Depression, cold as fuck, up north, snow everywhere, middle of winter. Horrible conditions. So each of them who had this considerable northern experience trekked the 60 miles, 97 kilometers to Johnson's cabin to ask him about the allegations. Jesus. So they walked that.
Man, so put that into perspective. I ran a marathon. I ran 43 kilometers.
43.
That took me 5.5 hours.
Mm-hmm. And that was in perfect conditions, that you'd been training for.
Not through the bushes, like on the road.
Not through 5 feet of snow, whatever else.
That is commitment just for questions.
To ask a guy what's going on.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So, seeing smoke coming from his chimney, they approached the hut to talk. Just to talk. Johnson refused to talk to them, however. Seeming to not even notice them. So they were rolling up. He's just blind eye, like going about his business.
How mad would you be
walking,
if you just trekked 90?
Almost 100 kilometers, and this jackass is in here fucking ignoring you.
He just gives you the silent treatment in the middle of the bushes.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, King looked into the cabin window, at which point Johnson placed a sack across it immediately. So the two constables eventually decided to return to Aklavik and get a search warrant.
They returned.
So they walk 100 kilometers back.
Good for them. Honestly, good for them for
good policing.
Doing it by the book. Yeah.
I wonder if that's true or if they just fucking sent it right there. Yeah. But yeah, it meant like, oh man, looks like we gotta go back. Like, too bad we just walked.
Because a sack of whatever
in
front of the window.
We need a search warrant.
I'd be so pissed.
Dude. So King and Bernard returned 5 days later. They do that pretty quick. That's
probably how long it took them to
I
get
know.
back.
5 days later with 2 other men. Johnson again refused to talk, and eventually King decided to enforce the warrant and force the door open. I'm getting ahead of myself here. As soon as he began forcing himself in, pushing on the door, like trying to kick it down, Johnson popped him, shot him. He shot an officer without saying a word.
Jeez.
So a brief firefight ensued, and the team managed to return the wounded Officer King to Aklavik, where he eventually recovered. So this is kind of just first contact with this dude, right? Shoots an officer.
Oh, man. So not only did the guy have to walk.
Not only has this poor bastard walked 400 kilometers at this point, 300 and probably carried the last 100.
I was going to say, he got carried back as a wounded officer.
He got shot too, all to ask this guy if he knew who was tearing down traps. Oh, man. They didn't even have him for anything at this point. They just thought it was weird he didn't have a trapping permit, and he's the most likely culprit for maybe this shit that's going on.
Oh, man.
This is a shitty day for Officer King.
Shitty week. Man, come on.
Shitty month. That's how long it takes.
Oh, wow.
So, after all this, they get back to Aklavik. Officer King's okay. They form a posse, as you do. As you do.
Pitchforks and everything?
Probably like guns, but sure. It consisted of 9 men. It's a good number, more than they had to start with.
Yeah.
20 pounds of dynamite.
Jeez.
and 42 dogs.
Oh, a little overkill.
Okay, 42 dogs. Like, let that sink in, dude. That's like more than 4 dogs a guy.
Yeah.
That's like 4 dogs for most of them and 5 for a few other guys.
Well,
what do you do with that many dogs?
What blows my mind is the dynamite. Like, what are they going to do with dynamite and dogs?
20 pounds. How much does a stick of dynamite weigh? Like, maybe a pound? That's like 20 sticks of dynamite.
Jeez. Yeah, they're going to obliterate that cabin.
Well, he shot an officer, though. And, I mean, this is, like, largely back then. Like, in the 30s, most of the shit that, like, the police did would boil down to frontier justice. Right. So, like, it would kind of forgo the, like, Judaical steps to, you know, just shootouts and shit.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but...
Yeah, let's just form a posse. I wish we could do that now.
I know,
you know,
right? Form a posse.
Form a posse. Get 42 dogs. Some dynamite.
Fucking Tim Hortons gave me a triple instead of a double. Let's form a posse.
Oh yes.
Oh my god. But yeah, all this from one dude. One dude. So they surround the cabin, and then they set to thawing out the dynamite inside their coats. So they didn't knock again. They didn't be like, hey, the posse's here. We've got like 40 dogs. They just went straight to the dynamite.
Yeah, I mean, if I had dynamite and dogs, I'd probably start with dynamite too.
I agree. I love dogs, so why send them in first?
Exactly.
Don't send them in at all. Just take them for a walk.
More for moral support.
So they eventually thawed enough that they were able to build a single charge, and they tossed it into the cabin. After the explosion collapsed the building, the men tried to rush in. Johnson opened fire from a 5-foot dugout beneath the ruins. So he was prepared for this, man.
Holy.
He dug that out in anticipation that they'd be back with dynamite and 42 dogs.
Gee, well, why didn't he just move somewhere else?
Why didn't he just be like, hey, no, it's not me doing the traps, man. Okay, have a nice day.
Yeah. Gee, what an idiot. But also, what a genius.
This man had forethought. And you'll find, like, what he does leading, like, after this is insanely impressive. Like, it's nuts. Like, this is the tip of the iceberg. Johnson opened fire from a 5-foot dugout beneath the ruins. No one was hit, and after a 15-hour standoff, ending at 4 a.m. in the minus 40 degree, also minus 40 degree Fahrenheit. It's the same Celsius and Fahrenheit when it hits minus 40.
Yeah. In
minus 40 degree weather, the posse finally retreated back to Aklavik again for further assistance. So they're at 600K now.
Yeah.
They've put 600K walking distance back and forth for one guy.
The leg strength on those guys.
They're just
that's all that's going through my
They're
mind
all
right now.
quads.
Yeah.
That's it. They could crush a man's head between their thighs.
Yeah. So one guy took on 9 people,
42 dogs, and 20 pounds of dynamite. And he's winning at this point, man.
Yeah.
Like, they blew up his cabin, but he's already shot an officer, and he's sent them running 3 times.
Jeez. Yeah, that's, I mean, hey, good for him. Mm-hmm. But no, dick.
Fucking asshole. Just answer the door.
Yeah.
So by this point, the news had filtered out to the rest of the world via radio, as it does, right?
Yeah.
After being delayed because of blizzard conditions, the reinforced posse returned on January 14th to find that Johnson had left the cabin, and so obviously they struck out to find him in pursuit, which who knows when he left. Like, at that point, you're just like hoping fresh snowfall, something, so you can track this guy.
Yeah.
But also, he seems like he knows what he's doing.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Eventually, they did catch up with him more than 2 weeks later on January 30th. So a 2-week pursuit, they actually managed to find this guy.
So they knew which direction to go in. That's what blows my mind.
That is so impressive. And I think a good part of that has to be like the dogs, right? If they're hunting dogs, tracking dogs, they'd help.
Yeah, I mean, with 42 of them, one of them has to hit the scent.
One of them.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. For real, though. So they finally caught up to him January 30th and surrounded him in a thicket.
Okay, so we've eliminated the cabin now.
The cabin is gone.
And he's in a thicket.
He is in a thicket.
Okay.
Johnson, so this is the guy we're still talking about. I know it's a lot of last names to keep up with.
Yeah, this is the guy that was shot?
No, so Albert Johnson, he's our main dude. He's the man.
Main dude.
He's the guy who's
Right.
in the cabin. He was the guy
yeah.
who shot the original officer.
Joe Bernard.
Yeah, Joe Bernard.
Joe Bernard.
And Constable King.
Constable King.
King was the one who got shot. Bernard was the other constable at the start.
Okay.
Johnson is our man.
All right.
So in the ensuing firefight, Johnson shot Constable Edgar Millen, the first constable that came out in the first place, who got potato sacked and had to walk back alone, through the heart, killing him instantly.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. So this guy's got one under his belt now.
Yeah.
And it's you're almost rooting for this guy, but at the same time he's killing cops, so you don't really want to be
Yeah, you're not rooting for this guy.
No.
He's a potato sack.
He's
himself.
he's a fucking potato sack. But so that's the first actual
officer. Okay.
full on the first fatality in all of this. There's been some damage, there's been collateral damage, huts blowing up, but this is the first point where Johnson's actually killed someone
That they know of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though he's fired his gun 3 times now or something. 2 firefights and shot the first officer.
Yeah, that one firefight went till 4 in the morning.
Yeah, 15 hours in minus 40 degrees.
How does he have that much ammo?
I don't know, man. I don't
Who is
know.
this guy? I'm so
Yeah,
curious.
you'll get more into it. Don't worry. I mean, I do know, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't know.
Okay.
Millen was later to have a tributary of the Rat River. So Rat River, I said, was important before. This isn't exactly why, but this officer Millen did get commemorated here and had a portion of that river, like an offshoot, a tributary, named after him. It's Millen Creek. So kind of nice, like a little memorial for him. Really still pretty shitty. But
Yeah. like, hey, you died here. We're going to name this place after you.
We're going to name the Rat River after you. Enjoy, officer.
I mean, it is a step up from Rat River, though.
It's still called Rat River.
Rat
River, here's this little creek coming off Rat River.
Yeah.
That's for
So
you.
you don't even get the Rat River.
No.
You get its tail.
You get the rat tail.
The rat's tail named after you.
Oh, man. So once again, they fell into retreat.
Oh, man.
But
Who's training these guys? That's what I want to know.
well, it's a posse now, too. So it's not just cops. When they form a posse, it's anybody who's willing to jump in with them, which is where the frontier justice comes from. So anyone with a gun, they're like, get in here.
Or anyone who's mad.
We're going to kill this motherfucker. He's been fucking up your traps. Let's go dust him.
Yeah.
Despite this, though, or rather, I guess not despite this, but I guess in light of it, the posse continued to grow in size. So more people are getting in on this. They even enlisted the aid of local, I'm going to get butchered for the pronunciation on these. It is tough, but Inuvialuit and Gwich'in. So these are 2 sort of northern native tribes who super rock solid on the land. And these are 2 tribes too that historically had kind of butted heads.
Right.
So they're working together here now.
In their territory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So maybe the tables get turned here.
You would think.
You'd hope so.
You would really hope so. So they enlisted these guys who are obviously a lot better at moving in this backcountry than any of these officers who are impressive enough. 100K in 5 days through backcountry, impressive. These guys, even better. Johnson had clearly decided to leave for the Yukon, but the RCMP blocked the only 2 passes over the Richardson Mountains. That did not stop Johnson, however, who climbed a 7,000-foot mountain peak and once again disappeared. So he said, fuck the passes, fuck the way that everybody else gets through this. I'm climbing straight over the mountain past these guys.
This guy just wants to get out of there. That's impressive.
This is in the dead of winter.
He probably had no climbing gear.
No.
His food
This is the
supply
30s.
was very limited.
1930s. What is there for climbing gear back then? It would be basic as fuck.
Yeah.
Even if
Some
anything.
moccasins.
If that, you'd be lucky to have moccasins. Guaranteed he's repping snowshoes, though, so you'd have to find a way to transport all that, find a way over this mountain.
He's got 15-hour supply of ammunition, apparently.
It was like, unlimited ammo. One-man army pro.
Cheat codes are on for this guy.
So in desperation, the RCMP hired a leading post-war aviator named Wilfred Whop May of the Canadian Airways to help in the hunt by scouting the area from the air.
So Wilfred May or Whop?
So it's Wilfred.
Yeah.
His nickname's Whop.
Whop. That's badass.
May. Yeah, it's actually any nickname for an aviator is cool. Like, you call him anything.
Yeah. I love it.
He arrived in the new ski-equipped Belanca monoplane. You'd probably know more about that than I do. I don't know.
Just a little bit.
Just a lot of it?
A little bit.
So what is that?
Sorry, say it again.
The ski-equipped.
Right.
I'm
So
assuming that...
just take off the wheels, or they have skis that literally attach to the wheels?
I would assume...
So you can land right on the snow.
Interesting. Yeah. Probably quite effective for what they're dealing with.
Oh, yeah.
And it's called a Belanca monoplane.
Okay, so I don't know that model or whatever. So the
Belanca?
yeah.
So it's just a model of plane.
Just the model, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be what they named it. But
a monoplane?
yeah, so essentially it can land on the snow, which is, like you said, very effective.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
And does monoplane, does that signify like one occupant or anything? Or
Honestly, man, I do not know.
Oh, well, glad I asked. He arrived on February 5th in that thing we were just talking about. May, I'm going to call him Whop.
Yeah, let's
call
this guy Whop.
Yeah, so Whop discovered that Johnson had crossed the Richardson Mountains when the airplane saw his tracks on the far side of the range. On February 14th, he discovered the tactics Johnson had been using to elude his followers. So this guy had a plan the whole time, and it's actually sick. Like, like mind-blowing that like this guy would even think of it back then. He noticed a set of footprints leading off the center of the frozen surface of the Eagle River in the bank. Johnson had been following the caribou tracks in the middle of the river, where they walked in order to give them better visibility of approaching predators. Walking in their tracks had hidden his footprints and allowed him to travel quickly on the compacted snow without having to use his snowshoes.
This guy is literally a
He
genius.
is a survival genius.
Yeah.
Who thinks of that?
I wouldn't.
No, I'd be dead already, man.
I'd stay away from the
Yeah,
curve.
I'd open the door and be like, yeah, man, I just got potato sacks in here. We're good. That's what he was doing with the potato sack. He was just like, yeah, this is all that's here.
Yeah.
Chill.
Oh, man. Good for, like, honestly, though, like,
It's insane.
he's using everything to his advantage.
This man is a
And he's not
survival
given a
genius.
lot to work
No,
with either.
he is not. And what you're carrying, this is over the course of like coming on close to a month now that he's been traveling.
Right.
And that's just shit he can carry and get on the way with him. So
Yeah.
like that's insane.
And then think of his food supply, too. Like, what's he doing? Is he, killing a caribou? But
Well, he doesn't have his trapping license, so he isn't trapping. I can tell you that much for free. So he left the trail only at night to make camp on the riverbank, which is the track that Whop had spotted. So the only reason this guy got busted is because at nighttime he'd like pop off the main caribou trail and like go make camp.
right.
So that's what Whop saw when he was flying around, is these off-shooting trails. Otherwise, he'd have just been like, oh, caribou tracks. Like, this guy ain't over here. Whop radioed back his findings, and the RCMP gave chase up the river, eventually being directed to Johnson on the day of February 17th. So they were getting direction from Whop over the next, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's how they made their way over to this fucking guy.
Right. So lonely Valentine's Day for Johnson.
Real lonely.
He got spotted right after, too.
Maybe less lonely at that point. It's about to get a lot less lonely. The pursuit team rounded a bend in the river to find Johnson only a few hundred yards ahead. Standing in front of them... Oh, sorry. He was standing in front of them. That's what I meant. Johnson attempted to run for the bank, but did not have his snowshoes on and could not make it in time. So because he's been following these caribou tracks the whole time, and probably because he's made camp for the night, he didn't have those snowshoes on and wasn't prepared to actually trek through the snow that he'd normally have to.
Rookie
kind-
mistake. Come on,
Rookie
man.
mistake.
If I'm out in friggin' Northwest Territories, I'm not taking those things off, especially if I know people are chasing me. Come on, I'm not that stupid.
He's only survived 2 months on the run from like 80 dudes and like 100 dogs. And WAP.
Yeah, and what?
And WAP.
Yeah, he's... God.
So doesn't make it to the bank. Another firefight breaks out.
Does he have cover? Like, what's... Or do you know the setting, or...
I do.
Okay, let's hear it.
So a firefight breaks out in which one RCMP officer was seriously wounded, and Johnson was killed after being shot in the left side of the pelvis at a kind of like 90-degree angle. So it went straight through him. So he didn't have cover because he was trying to make it towards this bank. Picture him kind of like fumbling through deep-ass snow.
No snowshoes.
No snowshoes because he's an idiot. I could have done this way better.
Yeah.
I'd still be alive.
Your pelvis would still be intact.
I would still have a pelvis.
Oh, man.
It is believed that the bullet passed through vital tissues, bowels, and main arteries, which led to his death.
Like his dick.
Yeah, it probably blew his dick right off. That's what did him in. He's like, I can't live without that. Fuck this. WAP landed the plane, picked up the injured officer, and flew him to help, for which he was credited with saving his life. So
Right
good
on.
old WAP, man.
Yeah.
This guy was he was clutch.
Well, you said he's what, ex-military?
He was ex-aviator for
Ex-aviator.
the Canadian Forces.
Yeah, so he's got survival
Canadian
skills
Airways,
himself.
sorry.
Yeah, he's got survival skills himself. He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's looking for out there. They wouldn't have found this guy without WAP.
Right.
Which still a super sick nickname,
Yeah.
actually. I like it. After Johnson's death, RCMP officials realized that he had traveled over 137 kilometers through back-ass bush in the middle of winter, minus 40 weather, away from his cabin in 33 days.
Yeah, and let's also include the 7,000-foot mountain climb.
He climbed a 7,000-foot mountain, had 4 firefights now over the course of this.
Yeah, let's just say his total playtime
A lot.
of being in a firefight was like 26 hours.
Yeah. He's got a lot of time with the guns.
A day and a half or something.
Day and a half in duty. He burned approximately 42 megajoules, 10,000 kcals a day in the cold weather and hostile terrain.
That's not possible.
So not actual calories,
But still, like that's...
it's like that's how much energy he burnt.
Yeah.
So there's a formula you can do to like actually put
You
that
didn't-
into calories.
You didn't do the formula?
No. I was going to.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I mean, just think about it. Though. When you like go for a walk or something and you don't eat, you're tired.
Yeah.
For a walk in summer.
In the middle of fucking
Middle of summer.
Edmonton,
Yeah.
Alberta, flat ass prairie land.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine how hungry and tired, but I guess the adrenaline's going.
Adrenaline would be going to some degree, I would think, but not for 33 days.
Right.
And like at that point, you're surviving for the sake of surviving.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the cold weather gets you, no food gets you.
The terrain gets to you. Not having
Apparently
a home
not. The
gets
terrain
you.
gets to you.
It gets to everybody else.
Yeah.
Not to WAP though.
Yeah.
Still just incredible though. Like
Yeah.
people today would be hard pressed to do that. People like well geared to do that would be hard pressed to do it. But
People
to do
wouldn't do the 5-hour walk just to knock on his door.
I know. The cops would be like, hell no. Like slough that off to someone else. But this guy did it like 90 years ago. So
Yeah.
I mean props to him.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. 75 years later, in 2007, forensics teams found that his tailbone was not actually symmetrical. So he was competing with that too,
Jesus.
causing his spine to curve to the left and right. So he had scoliosis, basically. He did this with
That's a
scoliosis.
tough draw.
In addition, one foot was longer than the other. So, like, he had two different size snowshoes on. Do you know how hard it is to walk with two different size snowshoes?
No, I don't.
Me neither, but probably pretty hard.
Yeah, that's a tough hand he was dealt.
Yeah.
But he seems to have made
He seems to have done pretty good.
quite a play with it. Yeah.
An examination of Johnson's body yielded over $2,000 in both American and Canadian currency, as well as some gold, a pocket compass, a razor, a knife, fish hooks, nails, and a dead squirrel, a dead bird, and a large quantity of Beacom's pills.
What are Beacom's pills?
So originally they were marketed as laxatives back in the day, but essentially they were a cure-all, like snake oil kind of shit.
Right.
It's like, take a Beacom's pills, you got a headache, you got a stomach ache, like back sore, take these pills.
Okay.
It was probably cocaine.
It was probably
It's probably fucking, I don't even know what.
We went from laxatives to cocaine.
Yeah, that's how he did this track. He was fueled on cocaine.
I mean, that actually makes a lot more sense.
It does.
And he clearly was trapping. He's got food on him.
Yeah, that piece of shit without a trapping license. It was
Have you
just
ever-
a joker.
Have you ever tried squirrel?
No.
Neither have I.
No. Why you got my hopes up? Were you hoping I'd say yes, and then you laugh at me?
I don't know, man. Those are like, that guy did what he had to do to survive.
He did. It's incredible. Like I'm saying, like people today, hard pressed to do that 90 years ago, and this guy does it just because he didn't want to answer the door for the cops.
Yeah.
He also had a set of teeth with gold fillings. They were believed to be his, but
Did they not check the skeleton?
I don't know.
That seems like a simple question to answer.
It does. I mean, it could have been anyone's, right?
Yeah, I guess. Does he have teeth? Well, we found his tailbone all messed up.
And his foot's wrong.
Yeah.
But we don't know where these teeth came from. I mean, they could be his, but not his. You know what I mean?
No, they're
like if you own them, you
Well,
take
like-
someone. If you take someone's teeth, they're your teeth.
I know, okay, but they did a whole thing on his body. They found out his foot was literally bigger than the other, and they can't figure out if he's got teeth in his mouth or not.
Take it to the RCMP, man. I don't know what to tell you. During the entire chase, the Mounties never heard Johnson utter a single word. So they don't even know what this guy sounded like. He didn't say one word. The only thing that was ever heard from Johnson, like the only sounds he ever made, was his laughter after he shot Constable Edgar Millen.
What a sicko.
He's a psycho. He's a
Wow.
fucking... So, like, that's where you kind of see it's like, maybe this guy wasn't just some dude who's getting fucked on by cops for no reason.
Yeah.
He, like, is something nefarious a little bit.
Yeah, no kidding. What a... Wow.
Yeah.
I mean... like, you'd have to have a pretty twisted mindset.
To laugh
laugh.
after murdering someone.
Yeah.
For just in the moment. Like, clearly he
In the middle of a gunfight.
Clearly, what that signifies to me, though, is that from the start, clearly he'd intended to kill someone, you know? Like,
Yeah.
first shooting through the door, and then his reaction to that, it seems like kind of his inkling the whole time was to take as many of these guys out as he could.
Right.
What's interesting, though, is that to this day, people still debate who he actually was. So Albert Johnson, not actually his name. It was the moniker given to him by the RCMP in light of all this.
Okay.
Because they never got info from him. He was just this dude who showed up, never said a word, and all this shit happened.
Wow.
Why he moved to the Arctic, they didn't know that either. Or if he was actually responsible for interfering with the trap lines as alleged. So they don't even know if he did that.
Oh my God. Can you imagine if some guy was just pissed and they just decided to frame the guy that no one knew?
Yeah,
And
that's
then
what I mean.
all of this ensued?
That's what I was talking about at the start, where you kind of need to think of both sides. Because they had so many people flooding in because of the Great Depression, this kind of thing was sort of not common, but having guys come in on territory where they weren't necessarily allowed.
Yeah.
And then coupled with him not filing for the trapping license right away, which was kind of a big deal back then, especially when going on to Native American land early in that time. And then even more so, the stigma behind these people flooding their land, like impeding on their territory, it would be pretty easy to be like, yeah, it's this guy who's doing our traps. Like, go get him out of here.
Yeah, like that's it. Just
And
seems...
maybe he heard about that. Maybe he knew he was kind of like being, I don't want to say hazed, but like singled out like that, and that's why he took such extreme measures to kind of protect his own.
just a grumpy man who wouldn't answer the door.
Yeah. He just threw a potato sack in the way, so they came back and blew up his house.
Oh my God. I still can't get over that. 42 dogs.
42 dogs, 20 pounds of dynamite. So after all of this kind of ensued, everything calmed down, blah, 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 the RCMP issued a series of photographs and sent them throughout Canada and the United States in an unsuccessful effort to learn his real identity, which to this day has never been definitively established. So like we have some ideas, which I'll go through a little bit, like I'll touch on, but at no point has it ever been like, this is who this is.
Right. So you want to hear something kind of interesting?
Yes.
So Ro.
Yep.
She's been listening to these crime podcasts.
Ro is his fiance.
She's my fiance.
Hey, Ro.
Wonderful woman.
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
Love her to death.
Gangsta Rowan.
Anyways, so she's been listening to these things, and I'll be laying in bed in the morning. She's getting ready for work, and she's listening to these podcasts. And she told me that they've been doing that 23andMe, that Ancestry DNA, and they've actually been able to go back and solve crimes from relatives that have taken their DNA to
fascinating.
that from like 40 years ago.
That's insane. So like they'll have it on file.
They'll have DNA on file, and once you do this DNA test and it goes to Ancestry.com or whatever it is, it's open to the public. And then you get people who, follow these stories very closely, and they look deep into it, and they access these archives of DNA, and they match them. And then they actually have put people behind bars 40 years after crime because their blood relative decided to take a 23andMe test.
That's actually fascinating.
So I feel like something might eventually come of it.
I feel like something could come of it now. Like if they took the time to look back into this.
Yeah.
Because you'll see here, like they have some ideas of like family members now. So they could totally do that.
100%.
Oh my God. That's
as long as one
cool.
of their his relatives.
Imagine getting busted for that though. Like you robbed a bank 40 years ago and like your nephew does a 23andMe and you get fucking arrested.
I mean, yeah, it's just crazy. There's no privacy anymore.
No, there really isn't.
But it also
it's in a way.
There's pros and cons.
There
to
are
both
pros
sides.
and cons to it.
So I think it's very interesting. It's very fascinating.
It is that they can do that.
It'd be so cool if actually maybe we dig a little deeper into this.
We solve a crime.
We solve a crime.
We solve a 90-year-old mystery.
Albert Johnson, look out!
We're coming for you, motherfucker.
Oh man. Yeah, it's just fascinating.
No, that's really cool. I didn't know they did that. I didn't even know that was possible. Nor did I know that was public information.
Yeah.
Not doing a 23andMe.
I had no idea either. But Rowan, she loves her crime podcast.
Oh yeah,
so
very popular right now.
Yeah.
This is not sponsored by 23andMe, obviously. Fuck that shit.
Don't do it.
It sucks.
Just don't do it.
Unless you want someone to get arrested. Narc. Snitch. In the 1930s, the initial investigation about the identity of Albert Johnson primarily focused on an obscure individual named Arthur Nelson.
Okay.
Details of Nelson's life are recorded by Yukon researcher and author Richard North, a.k.a. Dick North.
He would go there.
It's not even me being a fuck. He did write a couple books on this on this guy. So this guy, I think, actually has done quite a bit of research. I was looking into one of the books. That's primarily where I got a lot of the details for this.
Okay.
Was from, I'm going to do the shout out at the end, but Dick North.
How recent is this book?
I want to say 2013.
Okay, so fairly recent.
Yeah, it's quite recent actually. So Nelson apparently traveled from Dease Lake, British Columbia, Dease Nut, up into the
so
Yukon.
Immature.
Yeah, oh yeah. This is highbrow humor.
Yeah,
only education. In the 1927 to 1931 period, he had similar guns, a Savage Model 99, a .30-30 Winchester caliber lever action rifle, and a .22 long rifle. So this guy, Nelson, basically, one of the things they're using is the guns he had, which I'm guessing would all be registered, and that's how they knew that.
I don't know, man. Back in that day,
it's free for all. Yeah. Frontier of justice.
Yeah. Have you ever been like skeet shooting with Tom McGlenn?
No, but I have shot guns with Tom before.
Okay. So I went skeet shooting with Tom.
Glenn was on the show at one point. You may remember him from the first ever
As I
episode.
say, first guest.
They like guns.
Yeah. So anyways, we did skeet shooting for, I don't know, like a couple hours with them. And we had so much ammo for just a couple hours, and we blew through it. I couldn't, I don't think, there's 4 of us that went, plus their dad. I don't think the 5 of us could have carried that ammunition for that few hours.
Oh my God. So a 15-hour firefight in the middle of the boonies. How?
This guy's cabin had been
It was all ammo.
to the nines.
That's why it blew up so good.
Oh man. Well, but think of it though. Like the dynamite probably wrecked 50% of it.
It would have to wreck so much. Like whatever he didn't put. So if it's 10 foot by 10 foot, and he sectioned off this dugout for 5 feet.
Yeah.
That's half his shit, essentially. Like, who knows how much he could fit in there?
I mean,
where did he get this ammo? He built this cabin. Where'd the ammo come from?
And he came over on a friggin' canoe.
I know. Where is he getting this shit? I don't get it.
I gotta throw in the teeth he carried, the friggin' guns themselves.
Well, he had $2,000 in cash. That's substantial money.
Yeah.
90, like in the Great Depression, that is very substantial money.
He had a Mary Poppins backpack purse.
That's how he got over the mountain.
No, Hermione's little thing where she just
the bag of holding or whatever.
Yeah. She just digs deeper,
fire shit out of there.
Like that's the only way it makes sense.
Actually, though, like, and then like their means of carrying things way more inefficient. Like, there's no way they could carry the volume of ammo that we could now back then as easily. So
I'm just kind of blown away by the magnitude.
I know. I mean, granted, it did, like, you're reloading every shot most of the time with those guns. So, like, you'd be going through maybe less ammo.
But 15 hours.
Yeah, it's still a lot of hours. Okay, we're only shooting once an hour. We got to conserve ammo. Nelson is also remembered by Cascadena elders. What is this? Hold on, let me get my bearings here. Nelson is also remembered by Castadena elders Art John Sr. and others who knew him by the alias Mickey Nelson when he trapped and prospected in west central Yukon. So puts him in the general vicinity, gives him similar talents, has similar guns. Like, it seems like it's kind of going somewhere. So the Yukon author Dick North, again, so the man who published, I just need to get my bearings again. So Dick North, he's the guy who published this whole theory, is like what I was getting at earlier. That Albert Johnson, Arthur Nelson, and John Johnson from North Dakota were one and the same person in his 1989 book, Trackdown. He wrote another book, though, so that was his earliest one.
Right.
John Johnson did time in San Quentin Prison and Folsom Prison, and his physical description is well documented. North traced John Johnson's identity back to Norway. Johnny Johnson was born Johann Conrad Johnson. Like, it gets so convoluted, man. It's interesting how he ties this together, though. In Bardu, North Norway, north of the Arctic Circle. So, and you'll remember earlier that one officer mentioned that he might have like a Nordic sort of accent.
Scandinavian accent,
yes.
yeah.
So this would actually tie in too. Like,
and then I guess it makes sense how he knows how to navigate that territory pretty well.
And how he was just easily, like, knew exactly where he was going.
Right.
DNA tests have ruled out this theory, though.
Of course they have.
I know. So, like, it's like what we're talking about, right?
So maybe just a relative hasn't taken the 23andMe.
That's exactly it.
Right.
So it's still viable.
Yeah. That's hilarious. DNA test.
So they actually contacted that family, and that's how they, like, got these DNA tests done. But after a radio show, where was this now? According to the radio interview, a relative was arranging for a DNA test. So that's how they were going to do it. So there were originally these letters from the family of Johnston from Revelstoke, British Columbia. They were, like, trying to get this coordinated to find out if this was the guy, but they kind of went radio silence. So now, like based on this information, they tracked down relatives,
Right.
and that's how they got that DNA test done.
Okay.
So interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like going down the line and figuring it out. So in 2009, a televised exhumation of Johnson's corpse was aired in which DNA comparisons were made to confirm Johnson's identity. A forensic team sponsored by the Discovery Channel exhumed Johnson's body on August 11th, 2007, and conducted forensic tests on his remains before reinterring it in an attempt to confirm his true identity conclusively. All candidates tested against were eventually excluded with 100% certainty. So they still don't know who this guy is. They got Discovery Channel in on it.
Yeah.
There's programs, like you can go watch these like documentaries on it. And they still haven't been able to conclusively say who this guy is, which I think is probably the most interesting part about it. Like, he was just this enigma, this specter who came out of nowhere.
Just appeared, and he's got all these skills.
Yeah. Like, this isn't a guy who didn't know his shit. Like, it's a guy who's been doing it for a long time.
Didn't know how to wear
Yeah.
snowshoes at all times, though.
Jesus Christ. His only downfall. So, by analyzing isotopes in Johnson's teeth...
His teeth that are
teeth.
not gold.
I don't know.
That might be his
teeth, man. It's just his teeth. It was determined that Johnson was not Canadian, but likely grew up in the Corn Belt of Midwest America or possibly Scandinavia, also explaining the accent.
Corn Belt of America. Like, are we talking like southern states?
Yeah.
Is nothing like
I know!
I've lived in southern America.
He's one or
Those
the other,
people
man.
Are completely different.
They're kind of Scandinavian, aren't they? Refined type?
No, not even close.
So yeah, again with the Scandinavian. So it seems like that's probably pretty strong possibility that he's Scandinavian or of Scandinavian descent, especially with the accent, everything else. It was also reported that he was aged in his 30s when he died. So like a young guy.
Okay, but was that, I don't know, back in 1930s, that's kind of like life expectancy wasn't as great as it was.
Yeah, that's like late middle age.
So that's like a 50, 60-year-old now?
Yeah, give or take.
Okay, so he's seasoned.
He's very seasoned.
Yeah.
Knows his shit, and it shows.
Right.
So that kind of concludes the like bulk of my research into it.
All right.
I just like closing thoughts on it all. Like it still blows my mind that this man did what he did.
Yeah, and to the degree of how he did things, like he prepared, he hunkered down when he probably should have ran. Mm-hmm. He managed to find a caribou trail, which
Followed it, knew it was a caribou trail, knew he could use it for cover, knew he could travel faster with it.
yeah,
Didn't know he'd fucking die because of it. Idiot.
was able to take on 42 dogs.
20 pounds of dynamite.
20 pounds of dynamite.
That's like, you put that on your resume,
Like,
man.
but also the guy built his own cabin. Like that, it's not easy to do.
No. And this guy...
Where does he have tools to do this?
No.
This guy
I
is
still don't know. He had nails on him when he died. Maybe that's what he was using.
nails.
And a squirrel and a dead bird.
Yeah,
I feel like
mean,
the dead birds and squirrels, those are like the Cliff energy bars of the day. Like, you're getting a little low on energy, you just eat a squirrel.
if you were dying, or if you were out of food and you were on the run,
Yeah.
and you had a squirrel,
Yeah.
would you eat it? Like just bite into it, not cooking it,
Like
just
an apple, like a
Yes.
juicy plum, just like it's still squeaking.
It'll be cold. 'Cause
Okay.
Granted, we're in -40 weather.
True. So a squirrelsicle. I'd suck
Yeah.
on it, man. I'd suck it till the juices are gone. I wouldn't even need to eat it.
Oh, yeah, you. Dumb question,
You
of course.
idiot. Figured out.
Yeah. But yeah, no, he took very little he had, and he made the very best out of it in the worst way possible.
Well, yeah, it very, like, again, nefarious circumstances when you... It's such a muddled bag. Like, I even don't quite know where my stance on it is. On one hand, obviously, he's killing cops, killing people. Like, killing anyone isn't good. And, like, the way he's laughing at it, like, it just all seems like someone like a disturbed individual.
It's not the first time he's killed someone.
Yeah, like he enjoys it. But at the same time too, knowing the history of then, when there's like a lot of that kind of, not, you can't call it racism because that's obviously not what it was, but like when there was like a white guy coming into the land fleeing the Great Depression, immediately they were kind of set upon to like be chased out.
Yeah.
So dealt a shitty kind of hand, like shitty circumstances to be in, a shitty dude dealing with them circumstances. Like I really don't know what to think.
It would be amazing if we could just have a conversation with him. If you could bring him back and just be like, yo,
man,
you landed on the wrong beach.
Yep.
And
you should have somehow brought thousands of pounds of ammunition with you.
Should have just opened the door.
Just put the potato sack away.
That's what it was. It was
They pissed him off with the potato sack. That's where it all came down from.
Oh man, that's your kryptonite, is a potato sack and snowshoes.
Maybe that was like a big offense back then. Like you shove a potato sack in someone's face, it's on.
I mean, yeah, it's just
It's on.
things could have went so differently, and they didn't.
They didn't. They went. They went the worst imaginable way possible.
How long would it take you to dig a hole that big?
A long time.
You got 5 days. Could you do it?
In the freezing cold? No.
Yeah, the ground's frozen.
The ground is frozen solid. I am not digging that hole.
This guy's got to have a shovel now. Like this magic bag of never-ending
Hermione
space.
bag.
I'm just. How?
I don't know. That's what's so incredible. The fact that anybody was able to survive back then is incredible.
Yeah. And we can keep like that's just.
You could go in circles about it. Yeah. It's mind-boggling. That guy's incredible. Also a murderer, but an incredible one.
And then he gets shot in the dick because he's not wearing snowshoes.
Dick blowing off for sticking a potato sack in someone's face.
That's my favorite part. I love it.
What a way to go. What a way to go, and you deserve it, too.
Wearing shoes, not for long.
So keep your snowshoes on.
Yeah. If you're ever on the chase. Sorry, on the run.
I guess it'd be a good time now to shout out Mr. Dick North for his book titled The Mad Trapper of Rat River. It was actually a really interesting read, and where I got a bulk of the information for today's Bondcast.
How did you find that book?
I actually was just looking up. I look up interesting stories, interesting individuals in Canadian history, that kind of thing.
I would love to see your Google search.
Oh, man.
Guy gets shot in dick, not wearing shoes.
Dick shoot. Guy gets shot in dick. No snowshoes yet. Sucks on squirrel.
Yeah. 42 dogs and 20 pieces of dynamite.
Erects cabin with no tools. Erects.
Hermione's magic bag.
Make a story. I subjected Google to like 20 hours of Harry Potter movies, and this is what it came up with. Oh, man.
Yeah. I definitely would like to borrow that book.
Yeah, man. It's on my phone. I got it on Apple Books. But,
I don't want to borrow it anymore.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Next time, though, I'll buy a physical copy. Just for you.
Good.
Just for you. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks. This has been fun.
It's actually fun, right? Once you mellow out and like start having a good time
and get comfortable,
take
and
your
then you get
pants
into
off.
the story.
Get into the story.
Yeah. You can put your pants back on now. Yeah.
But no, once you get into the story, you like stop worrying about, talking and shit. You just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Learn something. Like, this was an interesting story.
Yeah, I never would have heard of this guy or found out about him.
I know.
Ever.
And there's a lot of material on this guy. There's people have written songs about him.
Songs?
They're all country songs.
Of course.
They're all country songs from like 50 years ago.
Okay. Why wouldn't they be country songs?
I know. There's like obviously that Discovery Channel documentary on it.
Yeah, if it's on the Discovery Channel,
it's legit.
It got some traction.
Yeah. There's a couple movies. One of them's like really fictionalized and really, it's interesting. And then there's like a couple older ones that more follow it closely, but like a ton of information.
Yeah.
I think because it's such like an unusual story, like 42 dogs. Yeah. I'd like to see the dog budget for that movie. Like, it's gotta be nuts.
42 dogs.
20 pounds dynamite. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, man.
It's been a blast.
No, I was so happy to have you here. Like, was trying to get you out here for a while.
Yeah.
I'm glad I've done it better now, though. Like,
Yeah,
I wouldn't have wanted you out here originally. Like, it was rough at the start.
But it's been fun listening, and it's going to be fun. Continue listening,
Going forward,
and just seeing
learning more, growing from
where this show has started and where it's going to go to.
That's what I'm excited for. Like, I'm actually thrilled for it. So thank you, man. Actually, I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Also, we're back to the weekly Bonds cast. So we're going to have one of these guys out every week. So tune in. If you're a Bonner, an avid Bonner, rejoice because we're back. We're back, baby, every week. And every second Thursday is going to be a segment that I am calling Conspiracy Theory Thursdays. Basically, we're going to take a look at some of the popular and also some of the more obscure conspiracy theories, some of the more, backwards ones, and see where they originated, what they're all about, that kind of thing. So if any of that interests you half as much as it does me, then totally tune in because I guarantee it'll be a good-ass time. Anyhow, thank you everyone for listening. I hope you tune in next week for both the Bondscast and a Conspiracy Theory Thursday. And stay safe out there, hey? It's scary. Lots of dogs, lots of dick shooting. Peace.